Attention now to the home front, and it's all about the Nigerian Football Federation. It's been in the news for a few weeks right now, but it's now official. The Nigerian Football Federation has officially unveiled former Ajax star Finidi George as the new coach of the Super Eagles. Now, the NFF announced the appointment of Finidi as Super Eagles coach 2 weeks ago, but they did not reveal the specifics of the deal. The former Ajax man signed this contract at the event where the president of the Nigerian Football Federation, Ibrahim Gusau, and the sports minister, Senator John Eno, were in attendance. He will be assisted by his former Super Eagles teammate Daniel Amokachi and former Shooting Stars player Benjamin James, who is based in Germany. We will also have the services of Mohamed Okut, who will serve as an analyst, as well as Netherlands-based fitness trainer Chima Unyeke, who has worked in Russia, Germany, and Greece. And this is definitely good because we would also have the return of Olatunji Bariwa as the goalkeeper trainer. And according to reports, Finidi has been under the one-year contract, and he will be in charge of the Super Eagles for the World Cup qualifiers coming up in June. He has been in charge of the team since March on a temporary basis, but it is now official as the team prepares for the crucial 2026 World Cup qualifiers against South Africa and Benin Republic later in June. And this is definitely a massive development, and massive because it's now official in terms of the unveiling. Joining me to discuss this is a football administrator, a seasoned one at that, as well as, a former presidential candidate of the top job of the Nigerian Football Federation. David Doherty joins me on the show this evening. David, good evening. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, Samson. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Let's delve into it quickly. It was expected, talking about the unveiling, but why did it take this long, 2 weeks after the appointment? This is just coming up. And what do you make of the unveiling?
I think it's something that we've been expecting, fans, stakeholders, people that actually love the brand Super Eagles and Nigerian football. I think it's a welcome development. I think it's just because the whole thing took long. That was why, we kept talking and asking for that to happen on time, based on the fact that the World Cup qualifiers is just around the corner. So I think it's something that is, welcoming. Kudos to NFF and the ministry for having to put that in place quickly.
Okay, let's look at the duration of the contract now. And the reason for that is usually with, substantive head coaches, you have a year, 2, 3 years, sometimes 4, so that they have enough time to work. But this is just a year's contract. Does that say anything? Does that give an inkling to how much faith the NFF has in Finidi George? Or do you think they are just putting him there for that duration before they can get someone they will think is qualified enough to lead the team?
I think you're right, because having to give an indigenous coach 1 year, it shows, tells, speaks volume. Probably you might want to say, well, maybe it's due to them having too much confidence in the man, but they should. It's something that they need to understand, that there will be a point we need to start having our own coaches coming into this space, and it's something that I've always advocate for, not just for any reason. It's just that we want more of our players, ex-players, or people that have actually played the game to some certain level to get into coaching, and I'm probably coming into this. So it's very, very important. We won't be relying too much on having foreign coaches to take up our jobs. It's not going to go too far. We're not going to develop that way. We need people that have played the game, people that have one way or the other, engaged, in managing football in Nigeria, or played the game in Nigeria, or played in Europe as well, to come in. It's better to have this kind of combination. If you look at the backroom staff that he actually went for, you see that some of them have actually tasted what it is to play in Nigeria, and also having to manage in Europe as well and play in Europe. And I think it's something that I actually enjoyed, and I want to see how best they will come up to build up that team and make it something interesting for Nigerians.
Okay, you've touched on something vital. I would like us to hear from the man himself, Finidi George, and I'll get your thoughts concerning the assistants you mentioned, because it is reported that the Nigerian Football Federation were the ones that picked Daniel Amokachi as one of his assistants. Again, it spells concerns concerning regarding the issue of freedom for for the coaches and how they're able to make selections and all what have you. But let's hear from Finidi George himself, what he has to say concerning his unveiling as the new Super Eagles substantive head coach. When we get back, you would answer those questions.
Earlier that we listened to the aim and aspiration of Nigerians that they need an indigenous coach. And that's why we go open.
I know money is good.
All the time.
But I think if you add value to what you're doing, the money definitely will come. So I'm not quite worried about any, even as much or more than what person was earning. You know, I think what I'm getting, I think is good enough for me.
Okay, you had Amanda. He talked about, you know, so many things. He also talked about the issue of pressure. He's not under pressure. He doesn't, you know, fear. According to him, he's not scared of anything, you know, as it were. Again, there are concerns that he doesn't have the full freedom, as it were, to operate as he would desire. The NFF has picked one of his assistants. There's the possibility that there will be meddling when it comes to team selections, among others. What does this spell for him and the team, considering we have two crucial qualifiers that we need to prosecute in June, and we can't afford to slip up, having missed out on 4 points from a possible 6 from the first two qualifiers we had last year?
I think I've always had my reservation in NFF having to, having to deal with having to get him an assistant manager in the person of Amokachi. Amokachi has actually, left the scene of managing football for a while. He's been into punditry, sort of get involved in politics and all that. So I think in this capacity, they shouldn't have done that. They should have allowed him, given him that free hand to pick whoever he thinks he wants to work with, or he thinks he's comfortable with. And this is where the freedom that we all want, we all been, clamoring for, that comes in play. Allow a manager to pick up what he wants, who he's comfortable to work with. Yes, they might have played together as teammates, but we might play together. He played with Amunike as well, but listen, the man said he doesn't want this person. This is what he wants. They should have allowed him to do that. But I think going forward, having to have seen Amokachi as well, but I think it will probably want to, work more with the rest of the team as well. There shouldn't be any problems with that. But my own reservation is just not having to see NFF coming in to do that for him. That's something that raises concern, and having to say, well, would that be the room for them to start having, bringing one person, trying to get him to choose some certain players and don't cause that. And this is what we don't want. Let's see what will happen, and just pray that the man, does very well with the rest of the backroom staff that he has selected.
Okay, I'm talking about the team now. Let's move away from the man a bit and look at the team. There are those who will tell you that the team does not necessarily need an overhaul. It's just a few tweaks here and there, and they can get going. This is a team that finished as the second best African team just at the concluded African Cup of Nations in February. What do you think, Finidi George should do differently from Peseiro? Not just in terms of playing style, but more importantly, the personnel as well. We have too many talents when it comes to the offensive aspect of things, but defensively, there's still question marks about certain areas. So how do you expect him to approach the team in terms of building the team? Is it a total overhaul, or is it, in quotes, some sort of renovations here and there to get the team going once again?
I think you've said it all. The best thing is for him to just try and work with the numbers that he has already. These are players that he's familiar with. And I think the only thing you need to do at this point in time is to look at areas that you think you might need one or two players to come in. At this point in time, you don't have to overhaul the team. You just have to make sure that you have a solid bench, even if anything happens to your first 11. And I think that is very, very important. People that can compete, that has a safe, maybe even more better quality than those that you have on the pitch, which is very, very important. He should try and make the team as more competitive as he can, which is is something that I've always talked about. But an area that we need to look at, maybe add value, and you might be surprised. You might have a player that is out there that is as creative as you want in the home scene. Why not? You might have one or two players that can do that. And I think there's something that comes with having the homegrown, players are playing, a vacuum to come in, maybe one or two to come into the space. I'm not looking at the area of having to encourage them. That's not my phrase. My phrase is that, look, they actually bring something different. They want to walk all their, work with all their heart and know that they want to do all the rough work. They can do it. And even looking at the creative side of the team is an area that we've been struggling with. Don't forget, we need someone. You might actually, look at ways to even, having to play without a creative player if you can't find anyone at this point in time. So that would be something that we will leave for Finidi and his assistant to come up with. They need to draft something, but really, you don't need to overhaul anything. You've got the team. You just need one or two, three players to come into the space. We've been talking about goalkeeping. That has been solved. So what we have now, you can boast of 1, 2, 3, 4 good goalkeepers out there. The young man that came into the scene has shown us that, listen, there are talents back home. There are players that can do the job. Now he's coming, Nwabali has changed the whole game. Now you've seen Maduka also picked up, and this is what we want, having to play as a first-team goalkeeper. It is important you have to be playing first-team football, and which is what will actually, rub on what you have in the national team. So I'm quite, very, very optimistic, happy as the way things are now. Let's just pray that they succeed. That's what matters.
Okay. Do you have David Doherty, a veteran football administrator, a former Nigerian Football Federation presidential candidate, speaking to us on the show for the past 10 minutes. Thank you so much for your time on the show this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now let's move away from football and turn our attention to the sport of athletics, and it's all about Nigerian speedster, superstar, you want to call her, world record holder, Tobi Amusan, who was in action right there at the Jamaican Invitationals, and it was the 100 meters hurdles where she became the world's fastest woman of the year with a world leading time of 12.40 seconds. In the thrilling race, the world record holder secured the victory, leaving behind the world champion Daniel Williams, who clocked a best time of the season at 12.46 seconds. Now, the triumph means the Nigerian athlete has now claimed the top spot globally, surpassing America's Tony Marshall's previous record of 12.42 seconds set in late April. This is quite impressive, it must be said, because Tobi Amusan's win is just 2 months before the Paris Olympics, and that sets the stage for an exciting competition ahead. And it will be the hope of so many Nigerians that she just continues to build momentum and peaks right at the Olympic, where it is the global stage. She is a world champion, a world record holder. Let's see if she can make it happen at the Olympic Games, which is sport's biggest stage of all. It will be a great one, and we wish her the very best in that regard. Still on the home front, golf continues to gain massive interest in Nigeria as the sport is now popular within the Nigerian military, and they have in no small measure